Charles Sills, do I know you?
Hello, Keith. How are you?
Oh my God, they come with surprises all the time. Charles, I'll tell you what, that was a great session.
I think that a lot of information was put out there, and a lot of revelations about how the government and the military has been working with HBCUs, and how much more can be done.
Well, I'm happy that you said how much more could be done as a question. It's almost like what works. Simply because I think we have so much work to do in that area. And it's not limited to Department of Defense. But when you talk about Department of Defense, MBEs, innovation, our academic institutions, we're talking about national security or
And
lack thereof.
and in that regard, I do want to bring up or kind of re-mention what Joanne Hill from MBDA told us in her presentation yesterday, which was that MBDA has been working very, very closely and robustly with NASA and with Rice University in this
Mhm.
special aerospace STEM initiative with other HBCUs as well. And so I think the MBDA is doing some amazingly innovative tracks with federal agencies and the DoD. In this case, particularly NASA.
You know, Charles, I'm kind of thinking historically because you and I can at least take 20 years into the life that we've lived in the government space and go past, present, and future. And I can't help but stop for a second at the COVID impact. And no matter what we did before COVID, we've now been required to do something significantly more of to try to stabilize, the country, our communities, get people back on their feet, keep people safe, and become global allies even more so, and to be friends to the environment. There's a lot that has stacked up on us since about 2 years ago from COVID. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, Keith. And one of the biggest problems right now that everybody's reading about in the papers or watching on TV is the supply chain crisis, because
Right.
so many workers are either not coming back to work or they're not going to work because of issues with being vaccinated and companies laying people off. And this includes defense contractors and dock workers at Los Angeles and other ports around the country. So what does that mean? It means that MBEs, as usual, disproportionately to other small businesses around the country, are being squeezed in those cases where they need supplies to produce the products or provide the services that they need to be providing and producing. And that's a real problem now.
For those who are just joining us or have been joining us and don't know who I am, I'm Keith Moore, co-founder of the IAEOZ Summit, Innovation in Agriculture Energy Opportunity Zone Summit, this being day 2 of a 5-year initiative. And my friend, colleague, Charles Sills, project director for our new MBDA Federal Procurement Center, and also a project lead for the Defense Leadership Forum. So when we talk about defense, national security, whether it's energy or agriculture or workforce, the grid, we're really talking to you from our live positions of experience, knowledge, know-how, and as Joanne Hill from MBDA says, in terms of one of the basic requirements for doing business with anybody, much less the government, is relationships. And Charles, I think you and I are kind of brothers from another mother when it comes to valuing the importance of having the relationships. With that being said, we have a job now We've been assigned, we've been authorized. An investment has been made in us, Charles, to help minority business mainstream, help HBCUs mainstream into this government contracting world. And you and I know, in spite of the achievements, accolades, and accomplishments that various agencies, like, for example, the Navy, I know they have a great relationship with Florida A&M, thanks to Anthony and the work that he's been doing. And there's so many others who have a journey with agencies or HBCUs. But we at the Federal Procurement Center have a responsibility to help at least 100 businesses, at least, per year, generate up to $50 million per year in new contracts. So this conversation, I think you would agree fully, for us, is data that we've collected, conversations that we've collected. And ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly why we created What Works Online, because this conversation didn't just happen today and yesterday, but it's designed to be in your classroom, in your office, on your phone, made available to you, because we know that information is powerful, especially when you know what to do with it. So, Charles, we're not wrapping it up. We're actually putting a bow on what happened over the last 2 days so that we can put it at the doorsteps of government, of universities, of corporations, and most of all, our minority businesses and small businesses. Your panel with Nick Justice was nothing more than a carried over conversation from the conversations that we would have on Saturday for 2.5 hours long. You'd have to get off, you know, it would be so long, but undoubtedly you would say that it's just almost serendipitous 360, because everything that he said this time built upon what he said last time. And I could speak for myself on a couple of the very specific things. Talk to me about your thoughts on your panel that you had with Dr. Iraq at Alabama A&M and Nick Justice at North Carolina State University.
Well, a lot of what was being talked about was the importance of the relationship between Defense Department requirements and graduate programs in research and development at HBCUs. Both Teresa and Nick talked to that at length. And in that regard, that brings up our collaboration, that is between the Defense Leadership Forum and KDM and Associates and the Federal Procurement Center, whereby some of our panels at the Defense Leadership Forum have highlighted the newly developing, you could call it, innovation ecosystem at the Defense Department and the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force now, specifically targeted to reaching out to smaller minority businesses that have advanced capabilities in everything from quantum mechanics to 5G to lasers. A lot of these companies would not know how to access the Defense Department contracting process, but the new centers, they're called WERXs in general. Defense Works, Air Force, AF Works, even Special Operation Forces Works and Naval X, for example, and the Mitchell Institute with the Air Force. But they have provided speakers to DLF's defense contracting summits. And as you know, we are taking those modules, putting them through post-production and sending them to the Federal Procurement Center for resend and dissemination to our minority business enterprise clients. I think that is going to be more and more and more important in the next couple of years to come.
Historic and revolutionary. Revolutionary in the sense that the institution that has been most revered as secure will remain secure, but find a avenue by which they become an entry point for information dissemination critical for a minority business to be able to enter into that Department of Defense industry, as an example. And that's why we call it What Works. You know, Charles, you know, my faith and, my thought process. You've been around close enough. We worked together that close. And just last night, I run across can't remember, the first African American Air Force Chief of Staff. Now, you're always in the business of correcting me, but we have a video that I could not do anything because it's on YouTube, but say, post that, because he talks about his background and connects his background and his unique position of leadership as a general in the Air Force with the George Floyd circumstance. I mean, it almost brought me to tears. Why? Because it takes leadership to speak up and speak out to the barriers associated with advancing the very things that this nation needs to inspire innovation, to inspire excellence, to inspire achievement. There are some parenthetical things that we face in our communities that are the exact opposite. They fight against those principles. And to listen to him talk about, as a father, as a young person growing up in the ranks, being the only one that looked like him, he and his sister in a school system where they were the only two, made me think very much so of why we're doing what we're doing, to make sure that this has less barriers, more entry points, more engagement, heart to heart. And what you don't know doesn't need to be your cause for not being able to find out what you need to know, so that you're no longer excluded. And so I couldn't help but to think about the work that we're doing in racial equity over in agriculture with minority farmers. Minority farmers, I think you would agree, Charles, have a right, and they work hard enough, and history says that they probably should be able to sell to the government. As an example of how we take a post-pandemic review of society, our families, our communities, our circumstances, and see how we can do better, build back better. What's your thoughts?
We have to open up more channels than have been opened up ever before for minority farmers to sell to the government, to the Defense Department. You're absolutely right, Keith. For example, everything from food to defense commissaries or barracks where the soldiers have to eat. The war fighters have got to have food. Everything from that to more sophisticated biofuels production for jet fuel, for green fuel, for the Air Force and for the Navy. So everything from food to high technology, agritech, minority farmers should be playing a bigger role.
And to that end, and I'm so thankful to hear you say that, because in my own experience of knocking on the doors, I realize how thick the doors and how tall the walls are. It's not made to be easy yet. Data. How about data today? TDP, Suresh, Dr. Akers. If we look at the data, we can see the problem. And if we look at the data even more intently, we can see where the solutions lie. And I think we're on to that. And we have to high five it a little bit, right? Because being a contractor on one side of the aisle, pursuing and even having great ideas and having the work ethic doesn't always land you a contract, right? You know that in the business. So being at the Federal Procurement Center, where we don't have to pursue, but work on behalf of those and train and mentor and provide guidance, it's a wonderful position to be in. And for that, we thank MBDA again for their trust and investment. But we want all the government agencies to recognize the same opportunities to really be a part of a collaborative. And Eric Yost talked about that. So did Nick. Last year, it was Nick who told me so much about community. And then I went to a place called Durham, North Carolina. And I got the sense of community where you have Duke University, UNC, you have these universities, and you have the workforce, you have the minds, you have the young people having a social life and an academic life, and they're working together. Pandemic, pre-pandemic, we need to create more communities like that around the country, especially in these diverse, distressed communities. And so that's where opportunity zones come in. But how about Will Walker? Did you ever, I mean, we heard about 1031 exchanges. We all knew that, right? But how about the 5-year program, the 1202 tax code? Did you know anything about that? That's a question.
No, good education. Absolutely.
So we like to think that we haven't just entertained, but we've engaged with education, and we created an opportunity to look at how we can do things together more formidably. Nick also talked about competition. And, you know, with the federal contracting world, as you well know, Charles, it's very competitive. Well, maybe we need to be relooking at competition. And how does the ultimate authorization of a contract or grant award allow us to create collaborations as a criteria as to who becomes the prime, who becomes the subcontractor? Is it a joint venture? How about the acquisition community? Are we talking to the acquisition community? There's Melvin Anderson. Is there an upside to connecting with mid-level DoD contractors?
Well, yes, and that's exactly where what I was saying before about the WERX ecosystem comes in. A lot of these innovation hubs in the Army, Navy, Air Force are actually running quarterly industry days. And Space Force and the Air Force ran one a few months ago, and on the spot, they provided micro contracts to about 10 or over 10 advanced tech companies, all small businesses. Again, this would have been unheard of 3 or 4 years ago, but now these mid-level contracting centers all around the defense community are actually operating the way they always should have been. But now it's really happening, and it's an open door more than ever before for small and minority companies.
Charles, tell us what you think about opportunity zones navigating their way into the Department of Defense.
In those geographic areas where you have an opportunity zone and you have adjunct military bases, that's where this comes together. That's where by the way, in every service, like the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, there is an office of military base dash adjunct community partnerships. And those partnership offices can be, and we can, I think the Federal Procurement Center can now play a role in putting them together with opportunity zone investors. Because if investors understand that property values and business values are higher in adjacent places to opportunity zone geographics, they'll be more likely to invest, and that will be driving community growth in those opportunity zone areas only because of the presence and operating of military bases and all the services and products that they require. So I think that's a kind of a genius a formula that you just advanced. Military bases and HBCUs as anchors in and near opportunity zones.
So Alabama A&M, our HBCU partner, is a perfect example of being located at the Huntsville and working with NASA and working with NSF and working with us and minority businesses and the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and Economic Development with Dr. Rock and their RISE Foundation, which focuses on purely contracts, not grants. Wow, what a formula, timely one at that, to create a template, a national template. Because I remember having a meeting, and it was with Dr. Williams, former president of Delaware State University, one of my favorites. And he's now at the Thurgood Marshall, leading that great organization. He literally told me the reasons why the Defense Department had challenges doing business with HBCUs. And one of them dealt with secret clearances on the campus. Any comments on that?
Well, I think it's necessary for HBCUs to take the example of Johns Hopkins, which, of course, is a very famous university in Baltimore and not an HBCU, but along with a couple of other universities across the country, they've established their own government-funded research lab. I forget the exact nomenclature, but that research R&D center is, I think, almost totally funded by the Defense Department and the government, and works on top secret and classified projects. Now, again, it takes a ramp up of applying for clearances, getting clearances for professors, for people, for students, researchers. But I think if the HBCUs can follow those examples and work with the government agencies and the Defense Department in establishing additional R&D university centers that are totally aligned with Defense Department military requirements in terms of weapon systems and high tech, I think that would go a long way to helping fund and helping STEM programs in HBCUs.
So would you say that just like the OTAs, which we don't talk enough about? First of all, tell us what OTAs are, Charles.
OTAs are the abbreviation for other transaction authorities, which is a typically obtuse government phrase for a way actually to streamline and bypass some of the cumbersome competition regulations for giving contracts out under the FAR or the Federal Acquisition Regulations. So let's say that Air Force WERX, AFWERX, wants to really sidestep competition requirements because they know that minority-owned company X, let's say, has a widget or an algorithm or a software, proprietary software that they need for their F-35 fighters. For example, they want to give a direct contract to that minority company. They can invoke the other transaction authority and give that money without any competition. It's a way, again, of sidestepping and streamlining the FAR, streamlining the competition process, and OTAs are being used across the board in the government and in the DoD now. It's a terrific tool.
You know, I really understand not just the cliche of information is powerful when you know what to do with it, but again, going back to the honored YouTube that I'm going to do our part at KDM and the FPC and IAEOZ to make sure everyone sees this video. But we can break down these barriers of racial equality by using information as our weapon, not against, but to draw attention to the opportunities to both our allies. And, I think we can reduce our enemy's tension potentially by becoming smarter at STEM, more successful at government contracts, more strategic in our acquisition community around how do we take these public policies that incentivize private dollars to come in and be a adjunct support financially to the revitalization, the sustainability and scalability of members of the community, which means that in layman's translation, housing and urban development should and could work with USDA and commerce, and it's from fintech to agriculture to defense, all can work in harmony to create jobs, to restore our industrial supply and our supply chain. Corporations should then become more welcomed, invited, and attracted to not just set goals or check boxes. Racial equality at the tip of the spear is who has information and the ability to take that information and make something prosperous, productive, innovative, progressive, community building. Now, one sector we haven't talked about. We even mentioned Space Force. But it shouldn't be Tesla and Bezos who are the only ones who know how to get there. We should have more minorities being able to engage in the supply chain of getting there. One more thing before we get to Nick's comment, because now we've talked about the conversation of OTAs. Getting our international community, right? Charles, we're partnered now with the IAEOZ Smart Village, and we're thankful for that partnership of 455,000 members across the globe who are committed to bringing electricity and power to communities. Guess what? Minority businesses could be a part of that supply chain. Correct me if I'm wrong. U.S. minority firms. Minority farmers can help other countries grow foods, become more nutritious, create commerce. I want to get that comment from Nick about OTA before we let in our next two guests.
I believe what Nick was mentioning, which is absolutely correct, is that there are the Defense Department has created a consortium for each of the technology areas or sectors that they're looking for solutions from advanced small businesses. So there's a naval air consortium, there's an IT consortium, etc. And Nick was saying that the best channel to get into OTA funds is to join one of those consortia. So it's a matter of education, again, which the FPC can help educate the small companies about what these consortia are, how to get into them, and how to get on track for OTAs.
Nick, we're going to ask you to co-chair our OTA What Works committee, and we will have a capacity building forum, perhaps in March, maybe down in Huntsville with Alabama A&M, but of course we have North Carolina A&T and so many others, 52 of them in opportunity zones. Ladies and gentlemen, we know the clock is ticking and we want to get it all in. So Zahn, why don't you bring in our next two guests, Robin Pate, Jose Nino, for our closing remarks. Jose Nino, he's got his dressed up and he's in Chicago. He's visiting his familia. And Robin, welcome back.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you couldn't tell by the energy that I have, these are my new next best friends. These people really, ladies and gentlemen, if you couldn't tell by the energy that I have, these are, I know that was powerful, but let's turn off the echo. These people really, ladies and gentlemen, if you couldn't tell by the energy that there you go. Listen, when we talk about diversity, ladies and gentlemen, we don't want to talk about it. We want to be about it. This is America. You're looking at Jose Nino, one of the founding members of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the list is too long to go through. Robin Pate is back from Greenpoint Research. Listen, we're at the end of this session, but look how much work we've put ourselves into moving forward post IAEOZ Summit 2021. Closing comments, thoughts from Jose Nino.
Wow. What else can I say? I mean, you speak about that that numbers don't lie. I speak about that results speak very loud. From what we said last year, let's move forward and put this program out there. Let's get it done. Innovation, agriculture, energy, opportunity zones. Let's bring the message. Let's educate. Let's bring it out there and put it in place. In the middle of this pandemic, that's what collectively we all did. So yes, the numbers have shown what we have done, and we went there. Today, you see the numbers. Today, we see results. Today, we see them coming back. Today, we see that we brought in new folks while we maintained everybody that was with us last year. And we're going to continue to grow. The fact that collectively we've added a federal procurement program. The fact that we are out there and we're going to be going out there to empower minority communities, minority serving communities, the Black colleges and universities, women-owned businesses, that are minorities and so on, that we have our partners from the military here with us, that we have our partners with HUD, with Commerce. I mean, it is so exciting out there that I just don't know how to hold myself back the last 2 days. I've just been writing stuff down because I don't know where to begin. I mean, do I start on the innovation side? Because we're innovative. We got IT. We're building new programs, new applications, and we're incorporating them in rural America as well in the inner cities. Areas where before we had what everybody calls deserts, one kind of a desert or another. And here we are bringing this innovation into agriculture, bringing new technologies to it that can grow them. We're bringing it into the environment. While the environment is very important to everybody, we're not just listening, looking at it. We as partners are participating in the environment, and those companies that we have brought forth with us to participate and actually deliver and lowering emissions and going out there and doing hydro energy and partnering in Africa, and says, here, we brought light. We brought electricity in this partnership. What happens? A more educated person, a more educated sustainability. And not only that, people are being fed. The World Food Program. People are just, wow. And we are partnering beyond what we originally envisioned. And we're going out there and delivering. I don't know what to tell you, Keith, but I am so excited because we are out there reaching in the educational system, the food system, the environment, the energy system, the finance system. We have found vehicles in which we can raise capital. As you know, the biggest problem has all been funding. And here we are sitting there creating it. pushing it out there. The opportunity zones that come in there, and what Robin and everybody else has done in all these areas. And here you have Charles bringing the information, and all our friends. My God, hold me back.
Like Jeremiah, huh? Shut up in your bones. I got it. Robin, why don't you tell us, because I wanted to put you in the mix of hemp, bio, and fuel, and industrial, and carbon
Credit.
capture,
Yeah.
carbon credits. Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what we would call in our close, just to let you know that we are closing this conversation for today, but our work carries on as soon as you all leave, and we'll be waiting for you to ask us questions, get on the phone with us, send us an email, and you can be rested assured that we will take every right, privilege, and authority that we have to get you that knowledge and information. Let's talk about carbon capture, because here on your left is the chairman of BioFriendly, a West Coast global company and sponsor of IAEOZ. It just goes on about the connection. So Robin, give us your perspectives on that, since you have so much knowledge. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, there's always more to know. I will say that for sure. But we do have a responsibility out there. We have a responsibility to our communities and to the businesses we work with. And I'm very excited about the carbon capture opportunity and the ability to look at how we can utilize hemp for those credits. One of the challenges in the hemp industry has been funding. And so this may be another funding mechanism with the credits that can hopefully enable more people and include a more diverse group of stakeholders into this industry. So we're very excited about it. You talked about the tour earlier across the nation with all the different agencies. And I think this one absolutely hits on all those agency tours as well.
Yes. And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, some of the backdrop, as you heard in the previous presentation with David, the CEO of Greenpoint Research, is that they're in an opportunity zone. They've leveraged federal dollars and private capital, which is extremely impressive. They have a hemp research science that we want to matriculate, is that the term, educators, into the classroom, into faculty members at universities. And because we recognize these emerging technologies and these innovations are happening so rapidly that by virtue of age and when you got your degree and what you need to know today, how do you keep up? We must face those realities. And so what we do is create a team approach with experts in respective fields who have common interests. Hopefully, all of us are common to desiring this world to be about what works, about improving the conditions for those we leave behind, improving, for me, my grandson, the world that we leave behind. And, I just am so thankful for this connection, but I want to just, again, Robin, give you an opportunity to speak to that opportunity zone perspective that you all have such a rich knowledge of.
Absolutely. So David is really the true expert in this. He has put together at least a couple of big deals for us. One of which is that our headquarters has now been moved to North Florida in an opportunity zone in Ag Central. So it's North Florida, and we're very excited about our Cannabis Center of Excellence. And we are also working with the Virgin Islands. And they have, I know everyone wants to go there. It's an opportunity zone down there. So this is, we believe, one of the first opportunities in hemp where two opportunity zones are working together in order to forge best practices, in order to look at how we can grow together, utilizing the innovation and the education and knowledge and the human resources that we have collectively. So definitely looking to do more in this space. We have a lot of investors that have an interest in it. Like I said, David is extremely knowledgeable and can speak to it better than I can, but definitely interested in looking at those paths forward.
And two things, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, Puerto Rico, right? My man Jose knows a little bit about that area. It's all the entire the entire location of Puerto Rico is an opportunity zone. The place where we have disasters. So, and we've had them, unfortunately. And these pieces of information that you're learning, whether it's coming from the Defense Department, who has bases and locations to protect our nation's security, needs the same type of STEM workforce, science, technology, engineering, and now agriculture workforce. So we're not talking about the problem. We're communicating what works in real time. Speaking of real time, why did we bring a person like Will Walker and invite him in? Because we knew that HBCUs and minority businesses and government agencies and distressed communities needed to understand that there existed a Thomas Edison laboratory of the world. Might be in Utah, but it doesn't need to stay in Utah, because we cannot do and achieve what we're seeking to achieve by it being in one location when there's 8,277 locations around the country who need that level of entrepreneurial ingenuity and need that confidence from scientists, where the scientists may be in white coats, but the students on the campus may come from very different backgrounds, and together they can bring about the manifestation of commercialized ideas that result in saving people's lives, making people live longer. I mean, or getting faster cars that spends less on fuel. It's so exciting, the world in which we are sitting post-pandemic. And so while I do appreciate the president having a real quandary around the condition of the mental health of society, because I could tell you, with the loss of my own mother, 2 weeks prior to my loss of my own mother-in-law, and the matriarch of my family, being laid to rest tomorrow, we have all experienced COVID. We've all experienced the impact of health devastation that brings about a mental challenge to find ways to survive. But as it's been said, we're more than survivors. We can thrive in this America, in this world, by doing things that work. And so, Charles, I'm not going to give you the last word, but I certainly want to get your DoD Wikipedia, government contracting, mentor protege expertise into this mix of discussion. You're muted. Nope, can't hear you. You're muted.
Thank you. I think they unmuted me now. Thank you. Thank you, Keith. As you summed up so well, with all the travails that the business community, the smaller minority business community around the country has gone through over the last almost 2 years now, the fact that these opportunities are opening up now with the government, with the Defense Department, and with agencies like the Minority Business Development Agency that we're representing here also, we have this great chance, speaking of mentor-protege programs, to mentor minority companies. And one of the best vehicles for that are the federal mentor-protege programs. And again, I invite all MBEs out there to be in touch with us for information on how to access these programs so that you can get into special partnerships under the DoD, under the Navy, Air Force, Army, etc., and other government agencies, and work with the larger contractors. Because like Keith has said again so eloquently earlier, it's about community. It's about a community of effort and working together for the highest quality provision of services, products to the government and to communities across the country. And if everybody works together with good faith, and good hearts, we can help everybody's standard of living and opportunities.
And create jobs and give everybody who's fallen on the Richter scale of being challenged to find hope, a lot of hope. A hope that entrepreneurship is an avenue of opportunity that has a larger upside of success than it does challenge. I can't thank enough the individuals who've taken their time to participate, but also to prepare themselves to give their best to communicate to our audiences global what the possibilities look like, what opportunities are there, and what strategies can literally make success happen. I've heard some common themes here: innovation, collaboration, community, outreach, partnerships, and mentorship, education. None of us can do it alone. Actually, there's so much work around, there should be no competition. Actually, I might think about the seriousness of minimizing competition and increasing collaborations as a metric for how we should approach acquisitions, how we should approach growing small businesses. I don't like to hear the numbers. Because of COVID, 40% of minority businesses have went out of business. These numbers don't make sense to me. When we have faith-based communities, even not being able to go into their building, but can congregate online and still have hope. Hope runs eternal. And we at IAEOZ Summit, across the globe with our global partners, and yes, you will be hearing from Timothy Maurice Webster, our podcast director. This conversation will be 24/7 around the globe. You can't help them hear it. It'll be a neon sign. Where? I've never seen this before. And all of a sudden it's right around you all the time, and you even can't run away from it. Because there's a time such as this when men and women are called to duty. I think the military has taught us that, taught us what we should be committed to. And I think in the core of that commitment, there's a heart for knowing that you can't do it yourself. So you need to find that next person who can help you do it. And as you get help, you increase your own desire to help. And all of a sudden, we've created a formula. We should not be competing on which conference to attend. We should be concerned about the content and how we get it out collaboratively. Because if there are way too many people on the other side of not knowing, then something is not working. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm almost afraid to thank all of the people who have made this possible. The Wonder Group. It's no wonder that you titled on your company, The Wonder Group. Thank you. Our sponsor, to Greenpoint Research. Thank you. INA Solutions. Thank you. And BioFriendly. Thank you. You know, TPD, thank you. Jose, help me, because your help has just brought a whole nother level of foundational solidarity to that we've been asked to do for the next 5 years, which is to help minority businesses in a historic way. And I guarantee you, with all the data competency that this team has demonstrated and communicated over the last 2 days, we certainly know how to track success, mark where we came short, and put in place the process that needs to make sure that what we need to work works. Jose, help us out. Sponsors.
let me tell you that we are very fortunate that even as we sit here, everything around innovation, everything around the environment, everything around agriculture is coming together. Not just here, but there's another summit going on right now in Glasgow, which is COP 26, is the United Nations Environmental Programs, which our own government attended. Out of there, the bankers have already said, we're going to put all this money into helping business. Don't forget that in this particular pandemic that we came out of, we also get another opportunity to reset business, entrepreneurship, and to reset how we work with other people. I brought a good friend of ours as to come here, Rodolfo Labeca, NASA, with his company, and they do project management work, and they help sponsor us along with several others. So what we're going to do is help all these folks. The work that they're doing with hemp right now, the future, as it's said before, it's in plastics, it's in textiles, it's in ties, it's in medicine, it is in all these kind of things outside of what it's currently being used for. And there are so many uses for it that we sit here and we look at energy and we're like, wow, the other company that we brought forth, the We World Energy, they're bringing ways to use generators without using power, without using fossil fuels, and using magnetic programs to get them done, so that we can continue bringing these programs to you, whether it's in hydro, whether it's in the environment, and with folks that in our government giving us an opportunity to bring minority business to the table in a bigger way to take them to the next step. This is the way that we're going to do it. So I am so happy that it started last year. We're on our road and we're taking that journey together. And as we go, we invite more people to get into the bus. And yes, as we drive and we go forward, you and I, my dear friend Keith, can sit in the back of the bus, because change. What they've done is that let us own a piece of that bus, or sell the tires for that bus, or the fuel for that bus. And they've let us create it, the future, the panels and so on out of hemp, the future, lower the emissions. They've let us bring in all kinds of programs to it so that this happens and we support what works.
To our global partners,
Federal Procurement Center.
To our global partners, IEEE Smart Village, thank you. To the Department of Defense and Defense Leadership Forum, thank you. Greenpoint Research, INA Solutions, thank you. We will, ladies and gentlemen, put a hyphen in between the next time we see you. You'll see us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and all of these videos and all the social media platforms for the next 5 days. I'm sorry, the next 3 days. You will become a subscriber to What Works Online and have access. Tell your friends, tell your family members, tell your government agencies, your customers, your clients, your education institutions, your faculty, your leadership, your board directors, your CEOs, vice presidents, and project managers and influencers of every corporation in America. We're here because we want what works. Thank you so much. This is IAEOZ Summit 2021 in the books, writing our next chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And is there a better way to do more business in a broader way so that there's less exclusivity and there's more productivity because more of us are in the game?